My name is Desiree Cochran Norfolk. I have a master's in addiction counseling, and I am certified by the Georgia Addiction Counselors Association as a certified clinical supervisor, certified master addiction counselor, certified addiction counselor level 2, and I'm certified by NADAC, the National Addiction Counselors Association, as a substance abuse professional. And I also hold certifications as an anger management specialist and family violence intervention program facilitator. Today we're going to be talking about personal values. So what is a value? A lot of times when I ask this question, people will tell me things that they value, but a value is something that can be thought of as a concept or a goal that's most important in your life. Something that you hold most dear to you. And what is highly valued by one person may be of little importance to another. So what I value, you may not care about at all. Like I value my children, but you could probably care less about them because you don't know them. And when we feel uncomfortable or disappointed about how we are behaving, it's often because our actions are not consistent with our values. So, for example, I worked for a restaurant a long, long time ago, and I was a crew lead at one restaurant, and they were opening up a new restaurant, and they asked me if I wanted to be an assistant manager over there. And I said yes, of course, because I needed to get more money for my children for Christmas. And so I took the position, I went over to the new store, and it was 90 hours a week. And I was feeling very crappy about not spending time with my children, about not spending time with my partner, and not sleeping. And it was just a lot of things going on. And I was feeling very disappointed and uncomfortable with my behavior, even though it was initially in line with my value, it started to become unaligned. And so I had to let go of that position and go back to my old position because it was not in line with my value. And so when we're talking about values, we have to think about self reevaluation. If I break this word down, self meaning me, and evaluate means to kind of look at or investigate, to inspect. And when we put re in front of a word, it means to do it again. So this is meaning we're rethinking a problem behavior. It means that we've already thought about this problem behavior and we've come up with a solution for it and we're trying to work that solution, but now we need to rethink it. Um, and recognize when and how this behavior is conflicting with our personal values and our goals. Am I on the right track? Have I fallen out of line with what I said I was going to do? I said I was going to go this way or I was going to meet this goal. Have I stuck to that or have I veered off course? So, thinking about some of the things that people value most, this is going to be good health, family, prosperity, cultural and religious beliefs, etc. And we also have to think about how our values change over time. So, what we value at 5 years old is not going to be the same as what we value at 16 years old, and at 21, or at 35, or at 65. They're always going to be changing. So we cannot expect for different people in different stages of life to have the same values as us. Like at 5 years old, you're interested in toys, games, food, family, fun. But by the time you're 16, family's not even in there. You're more interested in your friends and your academic career and dating and sports and extracurriculars and your driver's license. And then at 21, we're not even worried about that stuff anymore. We're worried about college and our friends and parties and drinking. And some 21-year-olds are worried about working and their families because they've started a family already. And then by the time you get to 35, you're more concerned with your family, your career, raising your kids, planning for the future. If you haven't already, buying a house or maintaining the house that you have. And then by the time you get to 65, it changes again. You know, you're more concerned with family and vacations and retirement and most certainly your health. So I want you to write down the values that are most important to you. I've provided a list here of some values that a lot of people have. Feel free to add any other values that are not on this list. Then I want you to circle 5 or 6 of those that you wrote down that are really the very most important to you. And feel free to pause the video anytime you need. Then I want you to put a star next to your top 3 values from the ones that you circled. These are going to be the ones that are the very most important to you. One thing I do want to point out here is that while we may have some similar values as other people, our core values might not be the same. So when we deal with other people, we have to keep in mind that our values may differ from theirs. So maybe you had a roommate that lived differently from you and it upsets you. Maybe you grew up in a household where your caregivers expected you to clean up after yourself. Your roommate's caregivers may have cleaned up after them. Or, you might value cleanliness as an adult, but your roommate may have a different value of what it means to be clean. So for me, I value cleanliness. I value everything being sanitized. I don't care so much about clutter. My husband, on the other hand, definitely values an organized space, and he's not so much on the sanitized countertops. So we work well together because he organizes and I clean. But maybe if both of us were worried about organization and nobody worried about clean, then we would have a problem. So our values differ, but we found a workaround between them. So maybe there's something there that you could find that works well for both of you. It benefits to share what your values and expectations are with those that you deal with often, so there's no lack of understanding. Whenever I do this in an in-person group, I have everybody share their top 3 values, and we write it out on a list on a whiteboard. And one time out of the last 7 years that I've done this, I've had only once 2 people had the same top 3 values, which says a lot about people in general. We may have similar values as other people, but depending on where we're at and our circumstances in life, our values are going to be different. So it's important that we discuss that with the people that are closest to us so that there is no lack of understanding. Now, what I want you to do is write down any ways in which your substance use may have interfered with you living out one or more of your values. So, for instance, here, if you value your relationship with your children and your substance use caused hurt or embarrassment to your children, then you would write that down. So the 5 or 6 values that were the most important to you that you circled, out to the right of those, I want you to make a note of how your substance use may have interfered with you living out that value. And I also want you to write down what changes you would like to make in your life to live more consistently with one or more of your personal values. Some people say that they value their families. So if that's the case, think about a time in which your substance use did interfere with that relationship. What can you do to change your behaviors to live more in line with your values? What are some things that you can do differently in the coming days in order to live out your values? Some people find it helpful to start their day by asking themselves what 1 or 2 values that they want to keep that day. And then checking in with themselves at night can also be helpful for evaluating your successes. And this goes back to that self-reevaluation. At the end of every day, reevaluate where you are. Did you meet those goals for that day? It's also going to be helpful to pause several times during the day to consider whether your behaviors are in line with or out of step with your values. So today we talked about our personal values and how our substance use interfered with us living out those values. And we also discussed things that we can do to kind of change to live more in line with our values. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, put them in the chat box below. Don't forget to like and subscribe.